introduction.
Welcome. We're here with the poet Teisha Twomey.
Twomey.
Yeah. And I've known her for a while. She's actually the editor of poetry editor now for the Wilderness House Literary Review, and I think you were also Night Train online, or?
Yeah, for a short bit. That project ended up not going through, but I did fiction editor too.
Okay, so yeah, yes.
Assistant, yeah.
So let me just read a brief introduction to Teisha. She received her MFA a few years ago in poetry at Lesley University. She's the poetry editor for the Wilderness House Literary Review. Her fiction, nonfiction, and poetry have appeared in numerous print as well as online poetry publications, and she lives in Boston, Massachusetts. So welcome. I was going to ask you first that you got your MFA, of course, we just said, from Lesley University, and it was a low residency program. We've interviewed many years ago Steve Kramer, who ran that. Is now, I think he left. Yeah. And who were your mentors there? I mean, who were the people who really, poets or writers who really influenced you there?
The reason I ended up going actually was Kate Marvin, because I really Kate Marvin. She's a professor there. I read her work, and I was really impressed by her. And then I went to an open house at Emerson, and I ended up going because that was the other school I was considering. And I went to one at Lesley, and at the Emerson one, it was all pomp and circumstance, and I didn't really get a feel for it. But I remember going into Lesley, and they brought us into a workshop, and I got to work with her on one day, and I was like, this is the program for me. But when I ended up going there, I ended up meeting Joan Houlihan, who was my mentor.
Oh yes, we've had her here.
Yep.
Okay.
She's a wonderful writer, and a really unusual thing is I worked with her the entire time I was there, and usually you have a different mentor each semester.
What is that workshop she runs again?
She does the Coleraine.
Coleraine, right?
Yes. Yep, she does Coleraine. But I ended up working with her for the entire time I was there because I didn't want to give up. I mean, she had so much to offer that I didn't even want to switch. And once we developed that relationship, that close working relationship.
And what did you like about her? I mean, what was her?
I liked how honest she was.
Yeah.
She wasn't afraid to tell me what was wrong with my poems. But, she had a sensitivity at the same time. I could trust her with my work.
She's not Donald Trump of poetry.
Exactly. And she was so knowledgeable, and that was the big thing.
Yeah.
And she could read my work and then be like, oh, you like persona poems, so I'm going to suggest AI. She was so great at suggesting what to read.
You do like persona poems, and you had some very wonderful ones in here. Yeah, I read once at our Concord Poetry Center. Have you read there? Mm-hmm. Quite a nice venue.
Yes, right? Wonderful, yeah.
Now, from hearing, from knowing you and hearing you teach in class and interactions, there seems to be very much the little girl in the woman. I mean, how do you stay, with the wide-eyed, little girl, looking at life with wonder, which you have to do as poetry, like you're looking at the things for the first time. How do you keep that in life? Because life has thrown us a lot of curves.
I think you go out into nature as much as possible.
Okay.
Is really important. And you stay close to the things and people that inspire you or make you happy to be alive.
Yeah.
I think that's really important. Going home, I think, is important, or going to the place that makes you most feel.
Where's home?
That sense of home. For me, it's in the Berkshires. So,
okay. I love the Berkshires. What part?
I'm from New Lebanon, New York.
Okay.
So it's right on the Mass line.
North Adams? North
sort
Adams?
of near there. Yeah, I actually went to MCLA for my undergrad. It was one of the schools I went to for my undergrad.
Yeah, okay.
So that's where I finished. But I think for me, it's really important to return to that area often. And
for you, a lot of people don't want to. Some people don't want to go back there. Right? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I mainly just, to go hiking and do the things that I used to enjoy, snowshoeing or the things I enjoy. I think that's how you keep wonder.
Okay. All right. Nature is for you, right?
Yeah.
Now, talk about, we try to catch the moment in poetry. You had this tremendous poem about Hiroshima, and we sort of had the flash of horror and the flash of beauty, They live close together, don't they? I mean, that's...
Absolutely.
Maybe you can talk to that.
Yeah. I think there's, out of, some of the greatest tragedies come the greatest art. There's a lot of hope in art.
And pain has great art, yeah.
Yeah, pain has great art. And, especially in the wake of the election and stuff, I think there's going to be a lot of writing and a lot of art being created, because people will be channeling that eventually. I think right now we're in an aftershock
cut
period.
The funding off. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
There's not going to be a whole lot of funding for it, but that's not going to stop true artists from creating.
Okay.
I think that, if anything, it's just created more feminists and more rebels, which is good, I think, in a sense.
Yeah, my father always told me I was revolting.
Mine too.
Yeah. And
I think mine was proud of that in a sense, because he was a union man. But
right. And tell me, how did you come up with this poem, this wonderful poem about
I read a lot of accounts.
Hiroshima and
a lot of accounts.
Hershey's.
Yeah, and then and there was one in particular that I drew from, that was this woman who talked about her experience and the colors that she saw and the way she had tried to grab onto her little brother's ankle as he was running past. And that image struck me.
Can you imagine that? Wow.
Yeah, it was just so powerful. And I think that I wrote it sort of knowing sort of the political tide, in a sense, and being afraid of that, and wanting to bring that it's not that far away. It could happen here. It could happen anywhere. And the idea that, like Krishna passed us by, saying that like the blue skin passed us by. It's sort of like you feel like there's no God at points. But by the end, there is hope. There's the generations after bowing in the direction and remembering, and how important that is, that we read these accounts and we honor the memory of the victims.
Yeah, I mean, someone once said that you can't write poetry after the Holocaust. No one can write poetry, but you can.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think if you hold on and you only through darkness is there light.
Yeah, right. One doesn't exist without the other.
Right.
Yeah. Now, interesting title, How to Treat Pretty Women. Pretty things, rather. Yes. You're a pretty woman. So how did that come about, the title?
Well, it's the title. The title poem is How to Treat Pretty Things, right? But the themes in the book, I felt like it best represented. I talk a lot about human nature, but also about how beautiful things often become a target, like not just physical beautiful things, but beautiful things in general. Like,
I know I've been a target many times.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So for decimation, and for, I guess it's sort of, the book is very vulnerable, and how we treat pretty things says a lot about who we are as people, I guess.
How do we treat pretty things, in your opinion, for the most part?
I think that we underestimate them, and pretty's not in the sense of a physical. It's more so like the things that are innocent and good about the world, and how we take advantage of them, or we despise them for some reason often, because we don't necessarily.
Why would we despise them? The purity and the innocence, because we're jaded.
Because we don't have it anymore, maybe. Or like you said about the wonder, that we've lost the wonder, that childlike wonder, and so we don't, we resent it in a sense when we see it.
Interesting. You like the persona poem as we discussed. So, I know as for persona, you really got to embody that person, go in that person, intimately reside in that person.
It's hard.
And you're 30-something, and you wrote about yourself at 79.
Yes.
And something that interested me, he said, what a relief, a great weight will be lifted. And I mean, how did you feel about that? I mean, how did you take, get into the head of a 79-year-old Teisha
Well, I also did one, that was about being a baby,
which
was hard. And that's kind of like the other side of it. I guess sometimes I already feel old at points, or like certain. And it's funny because people are always like, "You sound a lot older than you are on your work." People assume I'm older. Like the old soul thing, and I don't think it's necessarily that I have that. I think that it's that I can sort of like get into the mind.
Yeah.
And I see how tired people become. I guess that was the great weight being lifted.
Yeah.
I see how tired I already am. I can't imagine being 79 sometimes.
Yeah. That's good. So I was also going to ask you. So this book came out with what press?
Streamlines.
Streamlines Press.
Yeah, Stephanie Blackman's.
Okay, tell us about that press. Is it?
It's wonderful.
Yeah.
It's fairly new. Streamlines is a new endeavor. It was Riverhaven. It's like an offshoot of Riverhaven, and Stephanie Blackman really took she liked my work, and she really took a chance on me as a writer. And I had a lot of criticism about going with a smaller press initially.
Have you ever gone with a smaller press before?
Well, this is my first book, so and a lot of I think a lot of writers are holding out for these big presses, but you need an agent, and you know, and for me, I was honored. First of all, I love my publisher, but I was honored that she was so excited about putting it out, and that I'd have control over my cover, because I did my own cover, and I don't know. And
has it been reviewed yet?
It has. Julia Carlson's coming out with a review.
Who is she?
Julia Carlson. She's
Julia. Julia.
Carlson.
Oh, yeah. Julia.
Yeah.
Should I know her? Should I know her? Right.
Yeah.
So she's doing it from the Boston area?
Yes.
Great,
she's doing it through Wilderness.
Looking forward to that. Yeah.
So that's
great.
Be really exciting. I got to see a preview, and I was like blown away by it. I was very touched.
She's a very good writer.
She is.
Just retired as social services.
I love her work too.
Yeah,
her
she's
poetry.
A very good poet. Now, you are the poetry editor for the Wilderness House Literary Review. You've done that for how long? Weren't you like a fiction editor one time?
I was assistant fiction editor.
Assistant.
Yes.
And now you're what?
Under Prima.
There's huge offices out there in Littleton.
It's huge. Like I have,
And, so then you were promoted to the poetry editor or something.
Yeah, like that? It ended up opening up, and so I was asked to step into that position, and it was big shoes to fill, and I've really enjoyed it.
How does it work with your own work? I mean, does it help or?
With both of the jobs I have, and with
you also teach at Springfield.
Yeah, and I tutor at Bunker Hill. Yeah, and it's great. I love reading poetry in general as much as I can. I don't think I've been writing a whole lot lately. I think I will. I think
we all have our times, and I haven't.
There's an ebb and a flow.
Yeah, it's an ebb. Suddenly you just get the ideas, and then.
Yeah.
It just goes away.
I'm just so busy
that
with reading other people's work that I don't necessarily get to write that much right now, but I think that it definitely is feeding the fire, getting to read everyone's work, and I'm just appreciating other people's stuff right now, and I think
sometimes it fires your own inspirations.
Yeah. I try not to pressure myself too much about that.
No, you can't force it, right?
Yeah, I mean, they taught a course on that, and I remember thinking, you have to write at the same time every day in the same location, and there was this whole formula for being a good writer, and I don't think that that's the case at all.
I could be writing in block 11, or I could be on the toilet suddenly,
exactly.
Have
in the middle of the night, right? Or in the shower.
I just take out my little book and write down the idea and come back to it,
Yeah.
But as a poet, and you're a poet, you're always, it seems that your whole life you're looking for things. Oh, that's interesting. Maybe I can write about it. I know So I'm always seeing something, it's always something as a possibility. I mean, often most of the time it's not, but once in a while it's just something keeps hitting me.
Yeah.
Now, for instance, I don't know if you've had an experience like this, but I was on the train with my mother. She's 90 now, and we've sort of had up and down relationships as everything. And I reached for her hand, and I held it, and it was a good connection. When I went home I was in my brother's apartment in New York, and my hand was bleeding. And so I didn't view that as a bad thing. I didn't know how I cut myself. And again, when I was in my brother's apartment, my hand bleed. So I don't know what the hell's going on, but whatever. But it said, this means you have to write a poem about your experience with your mother on the train. Have you ever had anything like that?
Yeah, I think it's the thing about poetry that I love so much is that you're constantly making connections. Yeah. Like, I think I always kept a journal. Ever since I was a little girl, my grandfather told me when I was very little, you're going to be a writer.
Were you from a literary sort of family? No.
I think well-read, and my mother, was an artist.
Okay.
My father was, encouraged me to pursue the arts.
Yeah.
Did summer programs with me. So in a sense, yes. Uh-huh. I think my grandfather in particular was really well-read. Yeah. He would read the real Grimm's fairy tales to me, which were quite scary.
That's important, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that those connections that you make throughout the day, it's really important to just keep a notebook on you at all times.
Like we notice, like a lot of people, like a lot of kids, like college kids, I mean, I hate to generalize, but they are hooked up and they're not able to. They're
not able to turn it off, and that's so funny because I miss the days. I grew up, in rural areas, so I really miss not having a cell phone. And sometimes people are like, I drop off the map constantly.
Yeah.
People are like, you're impossible to reach, which isn't always great professionally in a sense as a writer, as far as promotion and stuff like that.
But you just need
But I need to just turn everything off, and I think it's important that people do that more. I think we're losing something. People are reading less. I think it's changing our brains even, how long we can even
I wouldn't
concentrate.
Mind if my brain changed a little.
I mean, I wish I could be like that.
No, I think it's important. Well, we get about 11, 12 minutes from you to read from your work, and I would hope you would read that one I pointed out about the
Hiroshima.
It's up to you, of course, but the Hiroshima and the woman, the elder woman poem.
Okay.
But it's up to you, of course, here on Poet to Poet Writer, right?
So wonderful.
Go ahead.
All right. So.
Look right at the camera.
I'm going to look at the camera. Okay. So I'm going to read Staring at the Sun. Or They're Not That Unusual. Whoops. This is also related. I'm going to do the other one, but this is also related. They're not that unusual. Meanwhile, mutant daisies grow 70 miles from Fukushima, Japan, where a tsunami caused a nuclear meltdown. Or so I read the day I had a nightmare for the first time, the one where I'm stringing garlands out of flowers together as fast as I can for my daughter with 2 heads and only 1 body. Before I can ever finish the second chain, the first strand is torn in 2. My child on the right reaches for her sister's crown. Again and again, a siren blares. My girls cry out and have me wishing that I had more than 2 arms, just in time for all my dreams to come true. It all happened 70 miles from Fukushima, Japan, or so I read or heard somewhere about the 2-headed daisies or a daughter, or was it just a single girl, one stem to the flowers I continue to string individually in my nightmares?
I forgot to say something. You've been with Ibbetson Street. You've been published a number of times in the magazine we put out here in Somerville, Ibbetson Street. Yep. And we have the new issue out, by the way.
Beautiful cover.
Beautiful cover by Jennifer Matthews, and the back cover is by Richard Wilhelm. And both you and your partner, Timothy Gager, who's watching right now, are in this, as they have been many times. So it is available now on Amazon. Well, I don't know if it's Amazon yet, but lulu.com. And we will be getting comp copies next week, anyway.
It's wonderful.
Okay. Maybe you should read the poem from it.
Yes.
It's not published.
Okay. I got to see it for the first time today, so. And I got to be on the same page as Tim. I was happy about that.
I think you and Tim are on the same page as far as
I think we are, yeah. I think that's why it works. Yeah. Somewhere. The bird with no brain believes Dorothy is too sweet or too dumb to know. He is a fledgling rising above the chimney tops, beginning to warble but swallows the pigeonhole pill and chokes on the sour mouthful. His shrill whistle is stopped, but she is full of strongs about these lemon drops. How now can she show him he's forgotten? We're all made of much more than just skin and muscle, the straw and tin within. All the same, the girl is smart enough to continue to rise above the chimney tops. He beats his wings to pieces, can't hear a thing, for her words for him fall on deaf ears. He thinks he loves the girl but can't help himself. This is the accepted wisdom, a lamentation at best. Why, then oh why can't I? Then, what a wonderful world. Thank you. So I wanted to read, self-portrait age 79.
Why 79?
Why 79?
I mean, it could have been 80, right?
Could have been 80.
So maybe like 79 is before, like 80, it's sort of like...
It felt like a precipice, I guess.
Yeah, precipice, yeah, like 29, 30.
Exactly.
Right there,
I think I wrote it when I was 29, actually,
okay.
so maybe that had something to do with it.
Yeah. I'm just wondering.
I am so old these birds could outlive me. I am relieved by this, like some great weight being lifted from my chest, the one that's bearing down on me, demanding. My only guests are goldfinches. I am not naive enough to think I own them. I unlatch their bamboo doors every morning, always honored when they stay. I comb my silver hair away from my face, still in love with my collarbone. I have 100 plants I overwater, saying each name like a prayer, begonia, anthurium, lilium. And then...
Well, whatever you want to read.
Let's see.
You reading? Do you have a reading coming up soon? Or?
My next reading. I'm so bad with dates,
Yeah.
Doug. But I have one at the Armory for...
Gloria and
for
Harris?
Gloria.
Or just
Doug.
Gloria?
Yeah.
Is it the first and last words?
First and last words.
So that's Harris Gardner too,
Yeah.
Great.
So that one's coming up. Or that's a Sarah Varna Press reading.
Oh, okay,
Sorry,
so that's a little different.
Yeah, I don't have that one.
Okay.
Sorry. And then I'm going to read the title poem.
Okay.
And this one is, it's this way.
Yeah, why? I hope it's not a typo. Or...
No. Because I thought it would be interesting to have the title poem.
Okay, it stands out.
It stands out this way.
Okay.
Yeah. How to treat pretty things. Our first apartment was located behind a glass shop, appropriate in hindsight. You were still blowing hot errands me then and holding me up to the light. Truck smelling like a salt marsh, back from Plum Island. Your first gift to me was a shell. I pressed it to my ear, heard the million waves. Saw our children with tawny wet locks, freckled and coddled, cocooned by monogrammed beach towels. You spoke my middle name softly, Dawn, when you learned it was something that either cracks or breaks on the horizon. I began to tell stories from childhood, leading you up and down the family staircases, so you could see each awkward school picture, the chronicled collection of descending smiles. When you proposed, I didn't know which hand to put forward, so I thrust them both out, hoping you might. It was April, and I was your fool. You pulled my leg so hard it came off. When I looked in the mirror, all I could see was the shine had left my skin. My shadow was large on the wall. One morning I woke too late, used up all the hot water. The ceilings cracked the first time I called you an asshole. Your impersonation of me batting my eyes, the gesture of an empty vessel. I had a dream that night that I hanged myself in the kitchen. I was a glass sun catcher in the window. You were watching me spin, the rays pouring through me. The warmth of August drew near. We spent the afternoon in our backyard. You held a tin can full of sand and ash. I tore grass from the yard in great handfuls. I once tried to sculpt a bust of my favorite artists, and the head collapsed into itself. I saw you then, head in hands, and me smoothing coil after coil, building you a crown too heavy for your neck. Do I have time for one more?
Oh, yeah, 5 minutes.
5 minutes. Yeah. Okay.
And even if you go over, for the sake of the tape, we'll just let it go.
Okay. So you wanted, which was the other one you liked?
No, those two ones you read that I like. I mean, I liked a lot of them, but the other one, those are the ones that stood out to me. But you can read what you want.
Let's see. About moment before, moment after was...
Okay.
Moment before, moment after.
By the way, This is on Amazon? You can get it there, and also...
Yes, Amazon. You can actually go to Barnes & Noble and order it.
Yeah. Is it in the Porter Square Books?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, you can order it through them. Yep, you can order it through any of the bookstores. It's also
is it physically in the Grolier now?
I haven't dropped off a copy yet, but
Okay.
I just haven't had a chance. I've been so busy, but I'm going to.
Good. All right, better do that. Okay.
Moment before, moment after. The 10,000 suns scattered her universe. 4 goldfish bellied up towards the light, then glimmered into dust. She stood in a shallow tide, plucking lily-white skeletons, keyhole sand dollars from the shore. She'd have them unfettered from each, 5 tiny doves of peace hidden inside. A red-crowned crane sat in her nest of 2 broken yolks. Krishna turned his back, his blue lotus skin passing them by. As the sound of flutes faded, the reverse silhouette stained the walls. His ocean of mercy scattered in a whirlpool of thirst. Her fingertips caught first, molten flesh trailing light gray down her wrists, before both elbows ignited. The finale of the fallen curtain preluded just 3 colors, red, black, brown, was all this child saw, as her little brother tore ahead in the dark, his delicate ankles tugged past her outstretched arms. Can you hear the bells the children ring? Bowing deeply in her direction, they wince at the sky, considering all the shadows, refusing to be washed away. I'm gonna read. Ode to the Caesarean.
I was a Caesarean.
Me too.
There's something in common.
Sometimes my mother tells me I'm getting too old to burrow into her like this, but mostly she just lets me imagine I'm still hidden, seamlessly bound to her. When she told me about being cut from hip to hip, I pictured the magic trick where the magician severs his lovely assistant in half. I wanted to apologize. Instead, I refused my cousin's hand-me-down bikini in solidarity. My mother and I wear identical black one-pieces to the beach. When she undresses, I do not get caught beeping at the ribbon of rosy scar tissue. At night, I see her kneading it with her palm, her slippery fingers covered in lubriderm as they work counterclockwise. I wonder if it would ache if I disappeared.
Got time for a short one.
Time for a short one?
Yep.
Last one. Okay. Natural history. I know the false description of evolution, the slow march of amoeba to man, a sequence of progressing complexity. Natural history is a pageant of disarticulation, punctuated by mass extinction. The universe's tendency is towards collapse. In any case, grasp a fossil, a shadow of its past. Take the nautilus, a chambered cephalopod. We hold up the shell and try to show its growth as relative to the moral development of man. Our work is small. We'll see what we want to see. Forge a fortress out of a bombed-out refuge. I don't know any other way than this. After all, there's still art on the walls.
Thank you very much, Teisha Twomey.
Thank you so much for inviting me.